join us on the starship Earth and reconnect with the science of the land and stars. From the depth of the oceans to the top of the cedars and beyond the galaxy. Portals and ceremonies, gravitational waves, caribou, highways, laughter as medicine, quantum entanglement, glacier, sovereignty, hunting, mathematics, berries, fire, crocus teachings, star people and Pleiades, grandmother, moon. Tellings from Stones to Stars on the Ancestral Science Podcast, a place to learn the sciences of the 7 directions.
Well, welcome back to Season 3 of the Ancestral Science Podcast. And can we just say, did you hear that amazing new intro tune? Yeah, that was mixed and narrated by Emil Starlight. And there's Walter Whitebear and Sharon Foster on the guitars. It was fantastic. Thank you so much. My name is Corey, your host and guide on this journey where we together learn more about the depth of science from stones to stars, or as we like to call it here, the OG science. So it was a sunny afternoon shortly after summer solstice here on the lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Tsuut'ina Nation, Yith-Kanakota First Nation, and more recently the Otipemisiwak Métis. And the pod was grateful to speak with contemporary storyteller Drew Hayden Taylor, who's Ojibwe from Curve Lake First Nation. And we talked about how he learned to write through osmosis, dimensional hopping and portaging, how Indigenous stories make great science fiction, 1492 and alien contact, anthropomorphizing animals and plants through relationality. Okay, let's get on humor as WD-40. Love that. And of course, how science fiction is a metaphor for many of life's issues. Thanks again to Indigenous Screen Office, Bespoke Productions Hub, and of course, Emil Starlight for the seamless editing and audio, and Alex for pod support and marketing. So go grab your towel, if you know, and a giant Powell lemonade, and join us across dimensions with multi-talented storyteller Drew Hayden Taylor. Okay, well, welcome to Season 3. I can't believe it's already Season 3 of the Ancestral Science Podcast. We are grateful to kick off this season with author, playwright, scriptwriter, novelist Drew Hayden Taylor. But of course, first, protocols. So I have some tobacco here to offer Drew for your time, your wisdom, your expertise, and sharing the space with us today. Will you accept this tobacco?
I do, and very, very much miigwech.
Hi. And of course, as we usually do, we review for the listeners the knowledge that is shared in this podcast. It's not mine. It's not Ancestral Science Podcast, but is always connected with the knowledge keeper and the lands that they are from. So please reference these protocols if you want to share this knowledge, because there's always some good stuff you want to pass on to other people. And please note that the Indigenous science knowledge and all knowledge that's shared here is just a sample, it's the tip of the iceberg of the depth of knowledge and science within these topics. It is to be gifted and truly authentically understood and embodied as these knowledges is to be understood in deep connection with land, cosmos, culture, elders, and ancestors. But without further ado, how about Drew? Would you like to introduce yourself in your own way?
Lovely. My name is Drew Hayden Taylor. I am from the Curve Lake First Nation, and I like to think of myself as a contemporary storyteller. And by the term contemporary storyteller, I mean there's so many ways in this contemporary universe to tell stories, more than just across a bonfire or a kitchen table, that I like exploring all those different ways: film, television, radio, print, theater, dance. That I have a great time mixing and matching genres.
Love that. Contemporary storyteller. Awesome. Okay, so is it true that you didn't get into writing maybe the traditional way or the way that many people would? I've always wrote all my diaries and stories as a kid, or went to school for writing. What was maybe your inspiration? Or how did you get into this awesomeness that you do?
Well, yeah, it's very odd because I was openly discouraged as a teenager. My grade 11 English teacher told me there's not much point in going into creative writing. You can't make a living at it. My mother said, why do you want to be a writer? It's not going to get you anywhere. So I gave up wanting to be a writer for a long time. And I just kicked around doing odd jobs in the city. After I went to college for radio and television broadcasting, sort of a technical journalism course. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I did not put my name to anything substantial until I was about 25. And that was a television episode I wrote. So yeah, it took me a long time. And yeah, I've never taken a writing course in my life. I just woke up one morning and was a television writer. And then I woke up one morning, was writing plays. I woke up another morning, was writing novels, and so on and so on and so on. So I think I learned how to write all the different genres, all the different forms. I think I learned to write from osmosis, from watching television, from reading books, from going to plays, all that sort of stuff.
Did you sleep with a book under your pillow and then it just like absorbed into your brain?
Pages between the toes of my feet.
I love that. Is there someone who is your inspiration?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really know if I had an inspiration as a writer, because I grew up here on the reserve, and when I was growing up, there weren't any that I knew of Indigenous writers. There were just settler writers. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't sure Native people were even allowed to write. So I had to make my way against the current in order to find my destination. So no, I didn't really have somebody to emulate, somebody to follow. I didn't really have a hero. I was too busy trying to make a voice for myself in the wilderness of writing.
Oh, the wilderness of writing. See? Good osmosis there. Was there a storyteller that inspired you?
Not here. Here we didn't tell traditional stories. We just told stories about people, places, and things we met. Funny people, funny stories, stuff like that. In my early years, I met traditional storytellers like Esther Jack from Jacko from Birch Island and such. But no, I can't really say I met any traditional storytellers that made a substantial impact on me because by the time, I lived on this reserve till I was 18 and we really didn't have traditional storytellers here. So it wasn't until my early mid-20s that I began to meet traditional storytellers from other communities. And by then the die was set, as they say.
Interesting. I'm curious about something that is inspired or something strange that's inspired you. You always hear those, it's that story that it's so interesting that it has to have come from some real life. Is there some strange place or situation that inspired a play or a short story, a novel that you've written?
I think so. I remember when I was about 10, my grandfather took me to a county fair. And I remember wandering around, and I saw this place where they had these horses, and kids would go on a small horse ride around the corner. It was like a small little miniature horse. And I remember looking at it at the young age of 10 and just looking how bored, how tired, how old, how sad that horse looked. Because its entire existence was going around in a circle carrying these kids. And it made me sad. And I remember as I grew up, every once in a while, my mind would go back to that horse. And I just sort of wondered if that horse, as strange as it may seem, as anthropomorphic as it may seem, if that horse ever had dreams or whatever, and where that horse would rather have been. And that sort of thought stayed with me for a very long time until I wrote a short story called Girl Who Loved Her Horses. And then I adapted it into a one-act play called Girl Who Loved Her Horses. And then I wrote it as a novel called Chasing Painted Horses. And I'd have to say that, and how that sort of image of that horse, that sad little horse going around in a circle, eventually became a play in a novel.
Meaning, I'm going to think about that now. It makes me think of something else I wanted to ask you about. Land is playing a role in your stories and your storytelling, and it kind of makes me think of what you said about that horse, I guess, on the carousel, and how in the sense that the perception from many non-Indigenous people of the land as object, as other, not alive, and putting that character or that spirit, I guess, with that horse, and you do the same, with story. If you think about with cottagers and Indians, and with that talking about the land and wild rice, and was the land a collaborator? How did you collaborate with that spirit of the land or the rice within that? Was it
the whole wild rice thing? Right? It happens all around me. This is. I live on Curve Lake is a peninsula surrounded on three sides by water, and there's wild rice all around us. So it was always part of existence here. So land was always, a part of practically everything I write. Going back to my very first play, Toronto Dreamers Rock, which takes place on Birch Island near Manitoulin Island, that whole thing, and Crees in the Caribbean, but an old Cree couple that goes to Mexico and sees the difference in the land, and so many other things where I just have to look out the window and I see trees, I see green, I see a wall, I see birds, I see insects, I see animals. No, the land, I don't think you can be an Indigenous writer without having an appreciation and understanding of the land and its role and our role with each other.
Absolutely. And I think it's hard, obviously not for you. I think it's how you write about that, I think is beautiful, and how it transforms you to that place of having that humility and respect for the land.
Yeah, and my last novel, Cold, it starts off with a plane crash in Northern Ontario, and I think the first 30, 40 pages or however many is strictly about the nature of the land, the texture of the land, the cold, and how these two women have been thrust into it, and how the land is reacting to them, and how they're reacting to the land. So I think that's one of and that particular piece, I remember just sort of thinking how cold I am as I'm writing this, and how the land was, and it's the winter land, and how it was reaching up through the computer into my soul.
Yeah, I was born up north in northern Alberta, and I was just saying the other day, I remember the sound of the ice and how significant, it just sounds cold. How cold is it from the sound of the ice? Mm-hmm. Significant. Well, this is an Indigenous science pod, so got to get into the science fiction. So I teach a class at the University of Calgary, and one of my sections is Indigenous science fiction. And so I always show your video on YouTube about how using, or how Indigenous stories lend themselves well to telling science fiction stories. And I think how that is you talk about that is fantastic, because I've been saying this for years. And for me, I'll be honest, I think Indigenous science fiction is science fiction. It's the same thing.
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, do you want to expand on this?
Sorry, I'm actually making a note here. You're reminding me of some interesting stuff I want to get to on another project.
I love that.
I know. Yeah, I'm actually writing sort of a memoir, history of contemporary Native literature, and my journey through it. Right now, I'm about 4 days from finishing the first draft.
What? So so you're not busy right now.
So no, just doing some notes like that. Just a second, last one. This is very rude, I know.
Anyways, sorry. I appreciate it.
For me, I've always viewed science fiction that you look at a lot of the traditional stories we have about our legends, they're full of elements of contemporary science fiction. Basil Johnson wrote a story about a legend, actually, that a friend of mine illustrated. And he talks about star people coming down and talking with the Anishinaabe, and how the star people were described as being very clean individuals. And you look at the word sky woman falling through a hole in the sky. I mean, and falling down, being caught on the back of geese, and then being put on the earth, being put on a turtle, some mud from a muskrat or an otter. You put it on the back. I mean, that's terraforming. That's multi-parallel space travel. I mean, there's all sorts of different elements there. And you look at some of the petroglyphs and pictographs out there with all these weird stuff on it. I think we've always had the capacity for science fiction in what we're doing. I mean, if you look at the story of from the Haudenosaunee perspective of the Pleiades star system, there's a story amongst them of these 7 kids who were dancing and kept dancing so much that eventually their bodies left the ground and went up into the sky, and they're still up in the sky dancing today, and that's the Pleiades. So, it's not as big a shift in perspective as a lot of people might wonder.
No, absolutely. And I've been talking about this for years. And as, my work in Indigenous science and looking at, the restrictive parameters of which is often defined as science, the standard universal methods that are used, nothing wrong with that. That is fine. But as Indigenous people, understand the world around them and beyond, it goes science, which is understanding the world around us. It is science fiction because it's space travel. It's looking at, it's going beyond our frequencies of how we understand the world around us. It's going beyond, different time scales and whatnot. That's science fiction, which is very cool. So I love how you were talking about, I think the ones that you mentioned: colonization, immigration, emigration, terraforming, visual representation, which I will say, so we wanted to collaborate on this earlier because we just did a Indigenous science fiction episode with the rest of the pod team at Comic-Con a couple months ago, which was fantastic.
Which one? Which Comic-Con?
In Calgary.
Oh, the Calgary one.
Yeah. So we were recording outside Comic-Con, which was fantastic, but it was so distracting because oh, look over there. It was amazing.
I know. I'm actually, one of the other projects I'm working on, hoping to finish at the end of the summer, is a collection of another collection of short stories about these 3 13-year-old kids who are dimension hopping. They're going to they call it portaging.
Oh my gosh! Stop.
Because you got, just if you think of it, you got the 2 streams of reality, and you just have to crawl over the rock to get to the other one. So they refer to what they're doing, going to all these different dimensions and worlds, as portaging.
Need to think about this.
Get back to me on that. So I'm hoping to finish. It's going to be a novella with about 3 or 4 short stories in it about their further adventures that I'm hoping to finish in September and have it out next year.
Dimension hopping. I always say that there's, where the 4th dimension is spirit. I always think about how those moments when those dimensions cross and you have like a deja vu, an aha moment, a vision of which, you're being showed something to us from the ancestors. Dimension hop.
There you go.
Portaging. Fantastic. Oh, so many questions. Oh, what is your favorite story or your favorite kind of topic within this science fiction? Is there something?
Well, I'm big for metaphors, and one of the things, in my book of my other book of short stories, it's the whole concept of aliens landing, where many people would say what happened at the time of contact in 1492, 97 was a form of alien contact. And all these people who are trying to find if there's other life out there, and we're sending out radio signals and stuff. If you look at the history of contact, it has not been beneficial for those on the lower end of the technology scale. So that surprises that nobody really gets that.
So what are your thoughts on going to Mars?
If you want to, go ahead. I don't know what the benefit is other than to say we've been there. I mean, it's the whole principle of climbing Mount Everest. Why, they asked Edmund Hillary, why did you want to climb Mount Everest? Because it's there. Why do you want to go to Mars? Because it's there. I don't think the mining possibilities on Mars are particularly great, and it'd be way too expensive to bring anything back. So I think it's just cultural ego that makes people want to go to places like Mars.
So true. It's like the moon too, or the harvesting of the moon. That makes me feel weird. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I there's an episode that we did with Elvin Harvey, Dr. Elvin Harvey, is doing work at MIT, and has talked about how the Navajo people have been pushing back against going back to the moon, or even that moment when people were sending their ashes to the moon, and I was like, if they're there, they'll never be reconnected with their family. And there's, what are the protocols of doing this? Mm-hmm. And we don't think about that. And yeah. Well,
I mean, what are the protocols of space age Indigenous people? One of my short stories was about that, Lost in Space, where the astronaut is out there and he's like, how do you greet Mother Earth, Father Sky when they're not there, and the four directions and all that sort of stuff when it's an irrelevant issue when you're in space. And I think there has to be a whole new series of protocols brought up to deal with that.
And then how do you talk about protocols when it's in even like the methods of understanding anything that's not of Earth? Because, all we know currently is, we're looking for life on other planets or other places or whatnot based on Earth-centric methodologies and epistemologies. But how do we do that if we don't know? I don't know what other protocols are. Interesting. What about time travel?
In what capacity?
I don't know.
I mean, it'd be fun. I mean, there's entire libraries written about time travel. Is it possible? Supposedly going back in future may be possible, but not so much going into the future. And I mean, I really don't know what the point would be of that, other than some minor level fascination. I mean, I did a short story about time travel, and the thing is, the character came back and he brought smallpox back with him, and he was the first person in 40, 50 years to die from smallpox.
Well, there we go. We've got to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a matter of laziness, but I like sitting in my chair and watching television. I don't want to go back to the bubonic plague or when tuberculosis was running rampage all over the place and all that. It's like, I like a hot shower.
Those are good. Maybe less mosquitoes. You're saying all the mosquitoes.
I always say, if they ever do manage to decolonize all of Canada, I hope we get to keep air conditioning.
Absolutely. Oh. Ooh, I think I see a coyote in my backyard. Hold on, I gotta go take a picture.
Storytelling is so important to Indigenous history. Our native land tells those stories.
A really historic place, Kinwis. It means calm waters.
Didn't even know one name, not one.
Being out in nature is where they want to be.
I want to inspire people. I love to see smiling faces after people try our food.
New season of Our Native Land, January 4th on Check and Check Plus. Supported by Royal BC Museum.
Okay, that was fun. Got to hang out with the coyote. Dog didn't like it, but that's fine. That was great. We got lots of ancestors in this neighborhood. Sorry, please continue. I want to ask how do you, I guess similar to a previous question, but I want to kind of think about more how you give voice to more than human relatives. Is it like being in relationship, say with the raccoons or with the rice or the horses? Is it?
Well, in my book, Motorcycles and Sweetgrass, I created anthropomorphic raccoons. And they were among the favorite characters. People told me they loved the raccoons. They liked the raccoons more than a lot of the other characters. And that wasn't very difficult for me. We used to leave, my partner and I, before we moved home to my mother's house, when my mother passed away, we had another house on the outskirts of Curve Lake, surrounded by 350 acres of land. And there used to be deer in our backyard. We saw bears walking by once, all these different things. And every night we'd put food out for the raccoons, and they'd come up and they'd come and nibble away at the food, and we'd wave to them, they'd wave to us. And the thing is, I was always told when I wrote the book that I shouldn't put raccoons in because the vast majority of my my reading audience is going to be urban, and urban people hate raccoons. And I completely disregarded that, and I put the raccoons in, and everybody loved them. And as I said, in here, we used to put out food for the raccoons, and they'd come, they'd nibble, and we'd watch them, and then they'd leave, and they never bothered us. It was almost like we were paying rent. We'd give them some food, they'd enjoy it, they'd leave us alone. Whereas I know so many other people have trouble with raccoons. I believe in live and let live. I find I absolutely adore raccoons. I just had a play that's opening in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island next week. And it's basically a cast of animal characters who are trying to make sense of human activity. And then anthropomorphize them and have great fun with them. I think they're as important, if not more important, more interesting than humans.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's like it's the gopher thing here. It's people don't like gophers. They're so darn cute.
Yes, they are.
And again, I think it's that seeing them not as relatives and as pests, and we're here first. This is their land. You gotta, but gifting food, that's your reciprocity.
Meanwhile, me and my partner have two cats, and I often jokingly refer to them as the most successful invasive species in North America. Mm-hmm. And we love them dearly. And out here, I am always hearing stories of coyotes and foxes nibbling up at cats and making them disappear. We used to have a fox that would come and visit us, and it was the most gorgeous animal I've ever seen. But I would imagine if it gobbled up our cat, I might have a different perspective of him. But so far, we live in harmony.
Is there an animal that you want to write about that you haven't yet?
Oh, well, kind of. Right now, I'm sort of in this thing now where I'm dealing with spirit animals. As I said, I did a book. My very first novel was a native vampire novel. And then I did Motorcycles and Sweetgrass, which was about the trickster. I did the science fiction series. Chasing Painted Horses was about the magic horse. And my last one is about the Wendigo. And my next novel probably will be about the little people. So I'm more interested in dealing with elements of our mythology, our cosmology more at the moment.
Oh, can you talk more about the little people? Is that, do you have to offer jelly beans first?
Yes, but what's going to happen is there's going to be this reserve that was settled sometime in the early 1800s. Somebody's digging a basement, whatever, and suddenly they discover bones, and the anthropologists come in, and everybody thinks it's a native burial ground. What they find out is this reserve settled in 1811 was actually on the grounds of a slightly older, maybe 20 years older Irish settlement. from the late 1700s, and everybody died out. So what they've dug up is a relatively old Irish burial ground. So what do you do when you have Native people living on an Irish burial ground in Ontario? And so as a result, there are little people living there, and nearby, who came over with the Irish, is a town of leprechauns. And there's bad blood between them.
So, okay, good question. In your culture, are there little people?
Yes.
Okay.
The Memagweshi.
Are they also kind of tricksters?
Very much so. Live along the shorelines of the lake and can get in mischief. And usually only children can see them.
What do you... We hear they're in the mountains. And now I will have to make an offering because now I'm talking about them. I've been told they like shiny things and sweets. So usually I offer jelly beans and glitter.
Oh, there you go.
Is there anything like that? Any specific offerings that you?
I don't know. I just have a cursory knowledge of them. I haven't done my research yet, but one of the things I've been told is that if you have a big pine tree, and if you notice underneath the pine tree, there's pine needles and there's no other plant growing there. Supposedly that's where the little people would have their meetings.
Oh, I like that. We have a lot of fun things upcoming.
Oh, yeah. I'll let you in on a secret. I technically hate writing. If I could do anything else, I would, but I have no serviceable talent, so I can only write. But in order to make it enjoyable, I like picking enjoyable projects. For the longest time, from about the mid 1980s to mid 2000s, the vast majority of novels and plays and poetry coming out of the First Nations community was usually dark, depressing, bleak, sad, and angry, right? Most of the characters were either oppressed, depressed, or suppressed. And it made sense. When an oppressed people get their voice back, they're going to write about being oppressed, right? But everybody's beginning to call it trauma porn, and people are getting tired of it. And I just realized that wasn't my journey. These weren't stories I wanted to tell. I wanted to be more positive in my storytelling. And I met an elder from the Blood Reserve in Alberta who told me that, in his opinion, for Native people, humor is the WD-40 of healing. And that stayed with me. So I wanted to sort of embrace and run with the concept of humor and use it in my work, because I've been to over 150 First Nation communities across Canada and the United States. And everywhere I've been to, I've been greeted with a laugh, a smile, and a joke. So I wanted to use that to fuel a lot of my writing.
Humor is the WD-40 of healing. Do you remember the name of that elder?
Rufus Goodstriker.
Oh. It's so true. I have a big project that it's on the horizon right now, and it's getting those moments of I want to do an Indigenous science film. Secrets, not really secret, but it's like those moments that, especially, when not having to, it's important within maybe a storyline to speak of, the oppression and the colonization of science, but to have those little moments of, baloney jokes, I think is really important.
That's right.
Or hot dog water. Very important. You've talked about a lot of future projects. What's the one that you want to full on promote, or that you're super excited about?
Well, I have to say that the sequel to Cold, the one that I'm going to call Small, that one, because when I gave McClellan and Stewart the copy of my manuscript, they read it and they met with me, and they said we took lunch, and they said two things. Well, actually, no, one thing. We really, really liked the book. There's only one thing wrong with it, and of course, I got all nervous and scared. My testicles went back up into my body. I said, what? And they said it needs a sequel, and that they wanted to turn it into an Indigenous X-Files. So that's basically I am getting started on doing a series of books that are basically the Indigenous X-Files, but no FBI. My central characters at this point are an over-the-hill Anishinaabe hockey player and a borderline alcoholic Indigenous professor of Indigenous literature.
Oh, I am so excited. Love it. You're good with characters, I will say.
It's fun, yeah. I'm big in theater, right? Where I find you can tell more of a story through character than you can through plot and play. So that also pops over into my into my prose writing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to flip it. Do you have any questions for me or the podcast? I've never asked this before. I
know that would be interesting. Just like, the thing with I find with the whole Indigenous science fiction thing is it Indigenous science fiction? One of the other books I came out with was a series of essays exploring and deconstructing Indigenous futurisms. Because I have my theories on the thing with a lot of our Indigenous literature that we've been working on so long is always looking to the past, always looking what we've lost, what we're trying to get back, what we're trying to maintain, what we're trying to reintegrate into our cultures. So we're always looking at where we came from. I've always been interested in turning that lens around and looking to the future. Where will we be in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? So I put together a book called Me Tomorrow. That is a series of essays by professional people in all different walks of life talking about the future of Indigenous people in different categories in terms of language, in terms of education, business, culture, art, all these different things, and politics, just looking at where we're going to be instead of where we have been. And so in terms of talking about Indigenous science fiction, it's not all technology, it's not all of that. It's sort of like looking at us as grassroots people and where those grassroots going to be come tomorrow or the next day.
It's that hope for the future, right?
I think so. Yeah. We've survived so much and such devastating parts of our history that I'm hoping it can only be up from here.
Yeah, it's like that we've already survived the apocalypse. So
Yes. I mean, if you're speaking of science fiction, if you've read Wabagisha Grice's Moon of the Crusted Snow, that's an apocalyptic story.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And to a lesser extent, Sharon Demerlane's The Marrow Thieves.
I just started it. Your book is in the bottom. We got Me Funny over there too. So we always cap off our episodes with a lightning round because it's fun. I say it's lightning round, but then there's questions that just start other conversations. So
yes,
they're just fun questions. So
I'm all about fun questions.
Who is your dream collaboration with? Could be a director, writer, actor.
That's a good question because I work in so many different fields. It's like, do I want to co-write a novel? I think it would have to be a film of some sort and get somebody like Christopher Norris.
Ooh,
Christopher Norris. Yeah, I think the director, right? The guy who did the Batman trilogy.
Okay,
work with him or Spielberg or something like that. I'd like to work with somebody big who has the vision to help bring some of my characters to life. I think that would be so much fun and so interesting.
Okay, if you're listening, get a hold of
Drew. I'm available.
Okay. What character or characters, fiction or non, would you love to break Bannock with?
Oh, goodness gracious. That is very interesting. I think Leonardo da Vinci would be really cool. Possibly, I think, because I've read so much about him, Sitting Bull.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus Christ, just to get the real story.
I was right when you said Jesus Christ, I'm like, to get the real story. Exactly. Okay, report back. When
I'll get back to you.
What's your favorite story? Like any kind of story.
Well, I forget who it was, but somebody said all stories can be broken down into two themes: a stranger arrives, or somebody goes on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you break that down. And, I'll admit it. Okay. This is where things get interesting.
Yeah.
Basically, in life, there are two types of people: Star Trek or Star Wars.
That was one of my questions.
Well, there you go. And I'm tying it into this one.
Perfect.
I am essentially a Star Trek fan. I love Star Trek and go with it. However, I love the first Star Wars movie. I think because you're getting into all this whole stuff about again, boy goes on a journey. You're getting into face has 1,000 hero. A hero has 1,000 faces type stuff, and it's so ubiquitous and universal, but so unique. So I'd have to say that one.
Love it. I'm a Star Wars. Another conversation. What's your favorite food from your ancestral lands?
Oh my goodness. I take it hangover soup doesn't count. Bannock doesn't count. Oh, I don't know. Probably something really simple, and especially this time of year, fresh strawberries.
Oh, yes.
While they're in season, I go and get a pint every day while they're nice and fresh. I adore fresh strawberries and fresh raspberries.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Is it bannock or fry bread? Bannock?
I've traveled all over the place, and I have a little bit of both. I'm ambidextrous.
Oh, I like it. New term for an ambidextrous bannock fry bread term.
Fried bannock?
For bannock. What aspect of science fiction scares you the most? Like intergalactic travel, not having oxygen, gravity, extra more than human life, or anything else?
I have to say, in this day and age, everybody's now getting officially paranoid about AI. With Snapchat and all that stuff happening out there, they said we're only we're barely decades away from complete AI existence, and nobody really knows what's going to happen. So yeah, that has me a little concerned. We're tap dancing on thin ice.
I think we're on the ice. We're I don't know if it's decades away.
You can see the cracks.
Yep. What aspects of science fiction excite you the most?
Just the power of the imagination. In many ways, science fiction, as I'm sure you know, was a metaphor for other issues. You look at the work of H.G. Wells, right? War of the Worlds was colonization. The colonization of one of the world's greatest colonizers. Time Machine was about class system and class wars. Frankenstein was supposedly an exploration of what would happen if men were given the power to create life instead of women. So that's one of the interesting thing about science fiction. It's an exploration of concepts that would be, dry and boring to read about in a pamphlet, but you can actually watch them come alive and give you a unique perspective on deciding the nature of that metaphor. Yeah, I really like that.
Ooh, you got me at the Frankenstein one.
That's unfortunate. That's not my theory. That's a Canadian sci-fi writer named Robert Sawyer, who I saw lecture and mentioned that. And I sat back and I thought, that is kind of interesting.
That is. Kind of makes sense.
It does.
So my partner wanted to ask you a question. He asked, are you influenced by Robertson Davies?
Robertson Davies?
He said, your writing sound. He means that in a good way.
He said what?
No, he was like, it's your writing has that tone. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of his books. I've read, I think, 3 of them.
Yeah.
The Manticore, Tempest Tossed, and the Fifth Business or whatever it's called. Bread. What's Bread and a Bone? That's the one I read. Thank you. I really don't think so, other than the fact that he used to live in Peterborough. He was the editor of the Peterborough Examiner. I can't really say no. I'm not essentially a big fan of his, but I have read. One of the things I always say about if you want to be good, all good writers are good readers, and all great writers are great readers. So I read anything and everything. So I have read some Robertson Davies. But no, I can't say that I was overly influenced by him.
Okay. Oh, what's your favorite book? Is that a question? That's a hard question. That's an impossible question.
Yeah, I can't. There's no way I can answer that.
No. Yeah, I regret that question. I retract. What about joke? What's your favorite joke?
Why do Native people hate snow?
Why?
Because it's white and all over our land.
I say we end with that amazingness.
On that note, yada yada yada.
But I'm bunching.
I'm here all week, people. Try the buffalo.
Well, thank you so much, Hand to Heart, for your time, your wisdom, and your sharing all of your stories and all the work that you do in bringing to life for everyone the land, the characters, and all the stories that you write and share. To all of your listeners, please check out Drew's work. We'll put all the links to all the stories and everything we've been talking about today. You can also check out his website, drewhaydentaylor.com. Again, all the links in the show notes. There's a ton of resources there for all you educators and curious minds and hearts. As always, a free way to support is to follow, like, share, and rate. So do that everywhere you get your podcasts. Appreciate the talent of Emil Starlight of Limelight Multimedia for always helping us sound great, and marketing and production support from Alex Flett, and support from Bespoke Productions Hub. Drew, thank you so much. This has been enlightening. I have so much to think about now about Frankenstein and portaging and so many things. So thank you. I'm excited for
as we say on my reserve, grazie.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Bye-bye.
Hi.